Good morning and welcome to AMA Puget Sound's Coffee Talk series live on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Our guest today is Britton Lorentzen, Senior Creative Development Manager at T-Mobile. I've heard of them. Thank you for joining us this morning, Britton. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me this morning. I'm doing pretty good. About yourself?
I am fantastic. So you're clearly not in the office, and I love the ghosts in the background. Awesome.
Thank you.
Where about are you?
Yeah, so I'm south of Seattle, so I'm around, if you're familiar with like Bonnie Lake, Puyallup area, I'm actually in the south end.
Okay, cool. I'm in Renton. Yeah, so I'm just below T-Mobile's headquarters, so that's pretty cool.
Oh,
yeah. So T-Mobile, talk about a little bit what you do there. You said you've been there about 4 years when we were talking before we went live. What has been your role there?
Yeah, so I've kind of gone through a pretty quick progression with T-Mobile. So a lot of what I do as kind of the Senior Creative Development Manager is we're primarily focusing on putting together creative for different marketing initiatives. Mm-hmm. So some of the things you might have seen regarding like T-Vision or some of kind of the big Un-carrier moves that we talk about. Our team is responsible for putting together most of that creative that goes on the website.
Oh, okay.
And we work directly with our business managers and our stakeholders to put together the best experience for all of our customers.
Nice. So is your favorite color magenta? I should probably ask.
So since starting working at T-Mobile, I actually added a little bit of magenta to the wardrobe, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite color, but definitely have a little bit of that wardrobe now.
Mm-hmm. And it's so fascinating. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it at some point, but when we're talking about branding and colors, AMA, we are very, very, very well known for blue, which I'm pointing way over. And it's funny, I worked for the Parent Teachers Association as well, and they have a color that's called specifically PTA blue. I forgot what the code number is, and that's fine, the RGB code, which I had memorized at one point. And I'm just curious, not curious, but it's just fascinating with such a big brand as T-Mobile. Most companies kind of tend to go for the blues, the greens. Magenta is right there. It's in your face. And I'm curious if there's anything you can talk about around that. Not so much the choice of magenta, but maybe some success with using that color.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to really that big wow factor, that big kind of pop. And one thing that is kind of interesting about the magenta is part of kind of T-Mobile. We're actually the USA branch. Mm-hmm. Magenta actually comes from our parent company over in Germany, Deutsche Telekom.
Okay.
So magenta has always been seen kind of as this like big, like bam, because a lot of kind of that energy and that DNA for T-Mobile stems from really being that underdog and coming into the marketplace and making a big kind of impacts on the entire industry, especially with like wireless. Just because there are a lot of carriers, and I'm not going to name names, but a lot of different carriers that it feels very businessy, kind of like everything is like a transaction. And it is kind of very dulled down and very corporate. And the way we look at it from T-Mobile perspective, we want to be the exact opposite. We want to create amazing experiences for our customers. We don't want to have a customer come in or any individual feel like we're just treating them as another transaction. It really is a conversation. It's a relationship that we have with all of our different customers. And magenta is just one of those things that kind of show that we have a little bit of personality. It's not as dulled down as others, maybe.
Right. It's fun. I mean, when you think of it, telecommunications, you're using your phone, you're texting, you're calling your people, your friends, your family. It should be fun. It shouldn't be, okay, I have to make this call because it's transactional.
Yeah.
No, that's not how we're humans. That's not how we communicate. We like to have fun. I love the just the embracing of let's have a fun color because we're humans. We like to have fun. That's really cool. Thank you for kind of going through that and the kind of the thought behind it too, because that's always really fascinating, how color can be so important, which is why we're talking about design today. So as mentioned in the title, we're talking about design already and the role of design in regards to digital marketing. And from your perspective, really, how important is it for teams in marketing to be working with devs, to have a pulse on development so they're tools because I have a few examples, to making sure that the devs are creating and using the tools that marketers need for design specifically. I once worked for a company where they were rebuilding the website, and it was a e-commerce site. They didn't talk to marketing at all at the beginning, and it was later on near the launch where they started talking to marketing, and it pushed back everything by probably 3 months because marketing say, no, we need to test these colors, we need to test this font, we need to test this and this. So where do you feel that there should be a conversation between marketing and development?
Yeah, a lot of it should really start very early on. And that's some of the issues that I personally still see. It doesn't matter what company that you're working with, that there's this big disconnect between marketing, design, and development. And really our goal as marketers is to come in and being able to position the best message and the most, just really a message that's going to get across to our core demographics and something that's enjoyable and really an experience that's memorable. And a lot of those conversations need to happen early on because we might have great ideas and great ways that we can engage with our customers. But how do we know if we're going to be able to effectively communicate our message if we can't get development on board to build out the proper tools, to work with design and give them the timing and the ability to really ideate and create the ideal message? So a lot of it really should be early on. It should be a conversation in the way that I like to approach it, because I kind of dabble between all the different realms. So I'm actually a marketing person naturally. Like my degree goes back to marketing, and I'm kind of in this design and development world trying to bring a voice for marketers and have this appreciation for design and building the best tools for our marketing teams to use. So being able to communicate and being able to effectively position the goals and objectives with what marketing is trying to achieve, and then being able to translate that into what does it mean from a design message, or what does it mean when we actually develop the tools and those experiences for our customers? Are they going to be able to remember that message, and is it going to be something that's fun and really memorable for that user?
So in those early meetings, what do you recommend? What do you wish marketers would know coming into that meeting? Because as marketers, as you know, because you are one, we get excited. We love having creative ideas. We're a very excitable group. How do you, what do you wish that we would know going into that meeting? Because we can throw all the ideas like, hey, what if we did this, this, and this? I would imagine the first one is, okay, take a breath. Calm down, and those first steps, where do you think marketing should be?
Yeah, I see a lot of value in marketing really working in tandem with the design team. And what I mean by this, and there are kind of like different design teams that marketing may work with. So some may work specifically with our user experience designers, or work with our UI designers. Or maybe it's as simple as really just like a web designer that's putting up like a blade or a module on the website. And really you can have those conversations with all those different teams and ensuring that all of them are at the table. So what that means is marketing should be comfortable enough to work with designers to let them know, hey, here's kind of our overall strategy. This is what we're looking at. And even though you may not necessarily know like the specific marketing terms, how can you take potentially like this message or whatever is briefed in, and do you see a potential idea that may stem from the design side of things that maybe marketing hasn't thought of? So I see this collaborative effort where marketing can work directly with designers to identify, okay, we're trying to get this message across, but we kind of have ideas. What do you think, designers? And then having the designers come in and be like, we do have these different tools that we can potentially put this, or that up, and then being able to figure out what is that best experience really from that brainstorm.
Okay. So would it be maybe too early for the marketers when they come into the meeting to have goals already? Like I don't mean definite goals, but very, very broad, say, at the end of this, we would love to convert, a certain percentage into customers. I would imagine, coming to the table with that, or is that just automatically known? what goals can be, or would you recommend everybody kind of puts those goals together, or not puts them together, but talks about them together?
Yeah, I would say coming to the table with goals is absolutely amazing, really, because what we can then do is figure out if we're setting a goal and we identify that we want to convert, I don't know, 10,000 users and the customers. And if the designers don't have a good understanding of what's really the business objective behind this, what's pushing this initiative, then there's not really like a want or a necessity to really put together an experience that's going to convert. It's going to be more about how can we make it flashy, or how can we, make it look good. But once we have those different KPIs in place and we have that, we've been able to identify what's the objective, certain initiatives, now we can be more mindful about, okay, if it is about conversion, then really we should make, for example, like CTAs more prominent. How important is like our headline and that messaging? What's that hierarchy going to look like? As soon as we identify that, okay, this is our objective, we need to adjust the message and the actual visual design to meet that objective and get people further down that funnel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that, working together, we've kind of talked about, okay, everybody has to work together, and you've kind of mentioned a few things, but how do you recommend that they work together? Is it just a one-off meeting? Is it a larger meeting and then smaller meetings? Do you have the smaller meetings and then a big meeting for all the groups to come together?
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to having that first kickoff meeting and identifying like what that goal and what those objectives are. And there's a lot of great tools out there. Like I personally really like using Slack.
Yeah.
And that direct communication where if we do have different questions about maybe we want to kind of look more into some of those different KPIs and some of those objectives and identify, okay, what does like this specific thing mean within the brief? Like what are you implying when you say this or that? Yeah. So having some kind of like passive way of communicating is always important. I don't necessarily see it like we don't need to waste time throughout the week or throughout, on a bunch of meetings. It could be using something like Slack and being able to pop in and ask a couple questions for clarification and go from there.
One tool, Slack, obviously awesome. I use it pretty much for everything when I actually log in. The other tool that I've used in the past was Jira. And that was during where marketing had their own board, the design team had their board, devs had their own board, and they would kind of overlap. That was satisfying if you're a person who likes to check things off of a box or see progress. I really like that. Trello, which is also owned by them, by Jira or Atlassian, is just kind of a more fun version. I definitely see those tools being very important when you're trying to communicate, and especially when you're trying to get the customer to convert in the end. What is something that you wish marketers knew? I'm going to flip it. What is something that you wish designers knew going into that meeting what is something that you wish marketers knew? I'm flipping it the other way. What should designers know about marketers?
Yeah, and I would say that when it comes to designers, really kind of like being able to identify, because there are different business objectives and there's like different outcomes that come from the designs that are put together. So from the design standpoint, yes, it's important to put together the message and make it look as eloquent and as kind of beautiful as we want it to be, but also being mindful of what some of those performance indicators are, because a lot of kind of the success of the design department really rests on how successful is our marketing partners. Like, are they able to perform? Are they able to convert as efficiently as they want? So a designer should be able to come into a meeting and understand and being able to ask those questions like, what is the purpose behind this experience that you want to put together? What are some of those metrics that we're being graded on? And how can we kind of take what essentially is a design product or end result and make it more, I would say, like not qualitative, but like more quantitative. Like, how can we put numbers to how successful our designs are coming across to our users and customers?
Yeah. And so for somebody who may not be a designer like myself, what would be some of those metrics?
Yeah, I would say like different performance indicators like click-through rate
Hmm.
is one that would be a big one. We also look at like heat maps for where someone's eye might be going down the page, or even like scroll reach, because sometimes companies love putting everything like all up on one page. It's like deal, 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 and it's like, well, it's overwhelming
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
user because now they're coming in, they're seeing everything stacked, and it's like, what am I supposed to look at?
Right. That's how I feel on Amazon.
Yeah.
Unless I'm looking for something specific, it's overwhelming. It's very overstimulating, and but that's just me. Some people really like that. So here's a question, just kind of off the wall. You got design, you have marketing, which work hand in hand. You're kind of you're fortunate. You're both. You have the ability to be both. Somebody like myself, I'm not a designer, but I know what I like. And I'm seeing, I'm sure over the last few years you're seeing as well, um, more job opportunities, but they're for somebody who's a designer and a marketer. And I'm just curious, what is your feeling on that? You're able to kind of fit into that wedge, but for somebody who's, well, I'm just a designer, I don't know marketing, and myself, I know marketing, I don't know design. And how do you feel about that, as somebody who can cross both of those, but then seeing from each perspective?
Yeah, I see a lot of pros and cons between someone who may necessarily like, they may dabble between all the different disciplines, but then ones that are very focused on one discipline like design or specifically marketing. The way that I look at it, I think it's pretty unfair to anyone out there if they're putting in a job rec and they're expecting someone who can do like all the design work, all the marketing work, and hey, we want you to build the website as well and figure out the technical side of it. It's really kind of it's a very unfair advantage. It's something that, we specialize in different things, and it's okay to have like the jack of all trades from time
Mm-hmm.
to time, but there's no focus on specific areas.
Right,
So,
right. It's being, what is it? The phrase, jack of all trades, but master of none.
mhm.
Yeah. So again, because you're from both of those perspectives, and as a job seeker, I know we really weren't planning on talking about this, but I feel that it's important, especially right now, when it comes to job seeking, for somebody who's just a marketer and they do want to dabble at least a little bit to get a competitive edge in design. What would you recommend to them? Would it
Yeah.
be a certification? Would it be just watch a few videos?
It could be a couple different things. Like I know a lot of people take like the master classes, like that's one big thing that a lot of people like to do. I think really what it comes down to is learning some of the different theories behind like how do you use color effectively? How do you use type effectively? Like I couldn't even count how many times like someone may come in and they don't really understand like what it means to typeset correctly
Ah,
and put together some kind of hierarchy and figuring out, what is that content hierarchy going to look like within the design. So
mm-hmm.
a lot of it really comes down to more so like the education behind the theory behind design, but not maybe necessarily needing to dabble into like, we need to learn Illustrator or we need to learn Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
But being
Okay.
able to have that conversation and have an educated conversation about design and what does that mean for my marketing message is
Mm-hmm.
valuable. And I wouldn't expect someone to come in and being able to do everything. But if they're at least willing to learn and look into the theory and have an appreciation for design, you can be a way better marketer just having a little bit of education about some of the theory behind design.
Sure. And now I'm going to flip it again, for perhaps the designer who wants to learn a little more about marketing. Where do you recommend that they start?
Yeah, I would say really like reading up on a lot of different publications. Like for example, looking at like Adweek and
Mm-hmm.
looking at some of the different ways that initiatives are put together, or looking at like different agencies, because agencies actually do a great job at showing like here's the marketing message, or here's like the different program that they put together, and then here's like the measured results from that different initiative. So I would say really like looking at case studies and looking at like what are some of the bigger agencies doing and what are some of those key performance indicators that they're kind of coming in and showcasing And it's really about looking at what are some of the big guys doing and how are they portraying their designs, because they may be designed first, but they're still showing those performance indicators.
Right.
Looking at those case studies, you can identify like, oh, maybe like click-through rate is important, or maybe I should look at different tools to measure what people are looking at. Is there technology that I can use or software where I can get a heat map and see where people are looking at or clicking on?
Yeah. I feel that, using those heat maps, I love those. Those are so fun. I have experience in email marketing, and gosh, those are just so fun to see where people are going. And it's fascinating. It's so fascinating because, especially from a marketing perspective, you might put a whole bunch of work into like one little paragraph in the email, but everybody's looking somewhere else. And you're like, not what I intended, but they're looking at something. So that's great. That's really great information. I do appreciate it. And I just want to put out there to our audience, anybody who is an AMA Puget Sound member, you do get 15% off tuition with City U Seattle, as well as School of Visual Concepts. So enroll, prove that you're an AMA Puget Sound member, and you'll get 15% off your tuition. So those are two organizations that really want you to thrive and succeed in your roles, whether it's marketing or design. So just putting that out there. I'll put a description in the link, or more information in the description. So we're talking about this. And one thing that you said that I saw that you had written is digital transformation is being brought to the market faster than ever. And a marketing team's ability to work closely with design and development is crucial towards building the best tools for marketing teams while delivering an amazing, engaging digital experience. We've been talking about this, but I just kind of want to give you just kind of blank canvas to go ahead and elaborate on that.
Yeah, so digital transformation, it's like this huge bucket, and it can be a little overwhelming to figure out like, what does it actually mean? Because a lot of people may see digital transformation is, what am I doing on social media? Or what am I doing with my website? And it's really a big culmination of all these different things. Not only is it about the website and about social media, but it's also about what's that integration, even for, like, for example, out of home. Like, what kind of opportunities are there to create a potentially digital experience from out of home advertising? Like during the pandemic, one of the big things that I saw were QR codes. All of that starting to build up again. And that's an easy way of looking at some of the different ways that we can be more digitally minded. It's not just the website or social media, but it's also the communication that we have between what's physically in the world and how it relates to digital. It kind of starts getting into the whole like artificial intelligence and virtual reality thing, which I don't know if I have enough time to talk about that today. But there are a lot of different innovations and different ways that we can take technology and have it marry with the physical world to make a unique and interesting experience for people out there.
Yeah, that reminds me, I went to, before we moved to moved from Wisconsin, I was involved with AMA Northeast Wisconsin, and we had an event in Green Bay, and I don't remember exactly what the topic was, but I think we talked about QR codes. And so this was probably 8-9 years ago, and it stuck with me how this one company started using QR codes that long ago. And I want to say it was Milwaukee Power Tools. It was a power tool company, and they had QR codes on their tools. And the point was, you take out your phone, use the QR code, and it would take you to the page dedicated to that tool. And that's where you would have the instructions. So you didn't have a huge pamphlet stuck in your junk drawer. And so it would be all the instructions, whether you needed a replacement part, and you could figure out what replacement part on that tool you needed. And it was all inclusive in that tool. And it was really, really fascinating. They were showing how it was being used, and that it was all just through this little QR code. And it just led to this whole world of just this specific tool, how to use it, and how to order parts from it, how to reorder the whole tool, how to contact customer service if there's a problem with it. And I thought, this is the best thing I have seen, and I have not seen anything as good as that since. So I would love to see more people utilizing QR codes. I think for the longest time, for the last 10 years, nobody really knew what to do with them. I saw a lot of insurance agents, they would just have it go right to their sales page.
Yeah.
Like, okay. What have you seen with QR codes? Because we're talking about it now. What would you like to see? things like that.
Yeah, when it comes to QR codes, kind of to the point of like Milwaukee Tools, like that's a great example of being able to come in and get like any kind of instruction. Like I've even seen it with restaurants. And that's where a lot of the big opportunity is as far as like digital transformation is really how can we bring it to small business?
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those big areas of opportunity that a lot of the times like a small business owner may come in and think, well, I don't necessarily have the capital or the money to be able to invest into like making my business more digitally minded. Like, does it even matter for my business?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say there are a lot of different opportunities. Like, take for example the restaurants that like they're utilizing QR codes and they're getting rid of all the different paper menus. And they're going all digital, and that's just a facet of their website.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be an application that they're looking to put together. Like there's a lot of simple and easy ways to bring in digital transformation to your business without necessarily having to spend an arm and a leg to get it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I wish small business owners would really understand is you can do some great marketing with zero budget. I've done it. It can be done. And I have to stick this in there. If you are a small business and you are only using Facebook instead of a website, tisk. Stop it. Use a QR code instead. You're almost better off. So one thing that we do need to talk about that we haven't, and we only have a few minutes left, but when it comes to design, I do want to mention accessibility. And what are some things maybe that you've seen or that you've done to bring more design, more accessible design to people who may need extra help?
Yeah, and accessibility is actually a really big part of what we do, not only at T-Mobile, but a lot of what I even employ on my websites. So some of the ways that I look at deploying accessibility is using documentation from like Mozilla is an incredible resource. If you're looking to make like your website more accessible for anyone that's needing to use like a screen reader, or if someone has a problem being able to really like pay attention or being able to focus on the website, because sometimes people do have a tough time being able to stay focused on a website. So being able to build in different tools, like for example, like one thing that a lot of us hate is background videos.
Yes.
It can be really distracting. It can get in the way, and it just kind of feels intrusive.
Yes.
So being able to build in some kind of override to where it's like a play pause button, so you can get rid of that. Or in general, if we identify like, hey, within your browser, like if you're able to indicate like, hey, I don't want things flashing up on me, and automatically taking some of those videos and pausing them, or even to the point of like different interactive elements. Like sometimes it can be really difficult to interact with things if you're using a screen reader. Or let's say that maybe you don't do well with like mice and you can only use a keyboard, for example. Being able to build different experiences, and it kind of gets into more of the development side of it, and being able to work with a developer that understands some of the different nuances of different tools that people use, whether it's keyboard only or it's screen reader only, and being able to further develop and optimize websites and applications so it can be more accessible to those type of users, and being able to learn more about your business and offering.
Sure. And how early in that discussion, we were talking earlier about bringing in design developers and marketers together. I mean, from my perspective, I would probably recommend bringing somebody in to talk about accessibility early on before work starts getting done. And then, oops, we're going to be alienating, half our users. So I'm just curious what your recommendation is. Mine is right away.
I would agree, like right away, and identifying, because a lot of that message is going to be adapted for some of those different use cases. So the way that we put together our message really should be accessible to everyone. So
Absolutely.
even the design, like even down to the design of it, if marketing has a certain type of initiative and they're saying, okay, we want this kind of experience. And sometimes companies like to do kind of that whole wraparound, where it's kind of like click here to go here to go here to go here. And it's a terrible experience. And imagine like someone who's using a keyboard or a screen reader, and they're having to go through and navigate and constantly being bombarded with all these different messages. Like it's just a terrible experience all around.
It does. And then, I mean, that gives a bad impression, even for somebody who doesn't need, extra assistance, extra tools, that can still be irritating. And if it's irritating for people who have disabilities, it's going to be irritating for everybody. So in my mind is, think of people who need the accessibility most. And if it's a terrible experience, why are you doing it? You're going to make your customers angry. You're going to make your audience angry, and they're not going to buy from you. At least with my perspective, it would be, well, if you're not taking the time to actually invest in getting the message out there to your audience, do I really want to buy from you? So that's really fascinating. So accessibility, always bring it in immediately. We're not going to talk about legal stuff because whatever.
Yeah.
Forget it. We're kind of at time, but I just want to kind of give you the floor, if there's anything that we didn't cover that you feel that the audience should know about when it comes to design and marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I would just reiterate like what we talked about earlier. And a lot of it is making sure that conversation is happening very early on. Mm-hmm. And I would advise to anyone within marketing, when they're putting together their different briefs for like different moves or initiatives, like don't be afraid to work with designers, because sometimes they'll have amazing ideas and they'll bring them to you and you won't even realize that's even possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of the times, like depending on the team that you have, like part of the UX part of design has to do with accessibility. Mm-hmm. So being able to work with designers to identify what are some of those different experiences, what's being presented from the brief, and how can we adapt it further to make it accessible for all users. Mm-hmm. And then making sure we're working with developers to let them know and understand that here's our message that we're looking at, and here's kind of the way that we look at deploying it, and how can we get there to make sure that we're making an accessible experience that is not only amazing, but engaging for everyone.
Exactly. Marketers and developers, it's okay to be friends. It's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. Let's be friends. I want to be friends. Let's be friends. That's my message for the day.
Yes.
Excellent. You know what, Britton, thank you so much for your time today. I was really excited to learn more about design, just because, like I said, I'm not a designer, but I know what I like. So I really appreciate your time this morning. And I'm hoping once things kick up, a couple more weeks and our state is open. So we should go get some coffee for real.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you again. His links are down in the description. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the like button, subscribe, and tap the notification button for our next episode. We will be coming back next week. As an announcement, starting in July, our new fiscal year, we will be going to every other week, just because it's a little easier on me and I'm the one doing the show. So excellent. On that note, everyone have a great weekend and a great day. Thank you. Bye.